Guys, many of you know that Governor Northam of Virginia, along with Parliament, the House of Commons, the democratically controlled House and Senate that are coming up January 2020, are getting ready to pass some legislation that's some of the strongest gun control measures in the country. This is something that actually could entail confiscation of sporting style type rifles and other firearms that are over a certain magazine limit. They're actually calling for British regular troops, even possibly the National Guard and definitely state police, to go to to go to individual homes and confiscate firearms that are legally owned by Virginia citizens. Now, Paul Revere, the Virginia Citizens Defense League, has recently put out a lot of information about what's coming up. And it is a great source, the vcdl.org. They're really giving a lot of information about a lot of the upcoming bills, and they're spearheading what's going on in the Virginia Second Amendment sanctuary counties. At this point right now, 90 counties have stood up, and not 13 colonies. And guys, I know that this seems a little bit silly in a way, but I'm telling you, the parallels are just too strong to ignore. Guys, self-defense is a basic human right, and we need to be able to defend ourselves against enemies foreign and domestic. One of the things that the colonies faced were threats from the French, the Native American population, and also the Spanish. And guys, those faces have changed, but the threats are not any less. We're talking about very organized gangs, drug cartels, drug users that break into people's homes to steal. We have a drug epidemic, an opiate epidemic that's consumed our country. We have just people that are just mean and angry that are out there. Illegal immigration and a lot of the things that they're bringing here. Human trafficking. There's a lot of different things where these organized groups are coming together and they threaten law-abiding citizens. We have seen it over and over in the news where many homes have been invaded with multiple armed attackers. And many times the only way to stop those attacks was from an AR-15 or an AK-47 because it actually gave them more rounds. And so we are seeing, guys, an attack on our basic human rights for self-defense. Now, to give a little bit of a summary, obviously, the House and the Senate of the state of Virginia has recently become controlled by the Democrats. Governor Northam has been a very strong critic against the Second Amendment, even though he says he supports it, but the full extent of the Second Amendment for a long time. And Republicans in the House and Senate previously were able to stop that, but now they are on turbocharge to get in there and to enact a lot of gun control. Now guys, there are over 39,775 firearm-related deaths in the U.S. in 2018, which is horrific. It's a terrible number. But when you break that down, 60% of those are suicides. And then you have the rest, it's about 34% are actually murder. Many of those obviously are gang-related, many of them are drug-related. And then some people are just absolutely mean. Most of them are repeat felons. And the problem is, guys, is when we enact these laws, it only hurts law-abiding citizens. There are over 400 million guns in the U.S. That's 1.2 guns for each person. And yet, honestly, we see a very small percentage of those used. The vast majority of homicides with a firearm are with handguns. A very small percentage, less than 4%, are with rifles of any sort. And then with sporting style or assault type firearms, the number is around 400 and something. It is very low. We have got to stand firm and retain our rights for self-defense. And Virginia is the battleground. Guys, if Virginia can be taken, any state can be taken. They have traditionally been very strong in the Second Amendment and a red state up until just recently. A lot of that has to do with a lot of districts that were reorganized, gerrymandered, and so a lot of these urban areas now have a lot of districts that have House of Representatives in there which are voting Democrat. And it outweighs the rural and more smaller town counties. Now, government does not give us our rights. Our rights are listed as the Bill of Rights in our Constitution, and those rights are endowed by our Creator. They are God-given rights. They are rights that are universal to man. And government's role is to protect those rights, protect every one of those rights. They didn't, again, give us those rights. And when the government talks about gun buybacks, we never bought those guns from the government in the first place. And so they shouldn't be calling it a buyback. What they need to be calling it is what it is. It's confiscation. Now, none of these bills have actually gone into law right now, but they're already poised to be voted on as soon as the Congress and the Senate come together in January 2020. And there is an overwhelming group that is supporting these laws. Now, what I'm really hoping is, because 90 counties now are Second Amendment sanctuaries or cities, and these people have voted a resolution for their counties to be sanctuaries for gun rights. And some have even said that they're constitutional sanctuaries. It's a lot of bipartisanship here because a lot of Democrats that are on county councils and city councils are actually voting along with the Republicans for these 2A sanctuaries. These are not legally binding. It's just mainly a resolution saying that we stand for our rights. But when it comes to state law supersedes these Second Amendment sanctuaries and these resolutions. One of the big things, though, that's really big is that it sends a really clear message to those Democrats that the people of Virginia are very upset. In fact, one meeting had over 3,000 people in attendance. There are a lot of people out there that are wanting to protect their rights and stand for their freedom and for the Constitution. Now, guys, the big problem here is that if Virginia falls, other states will follow. In fact, other bills have already been introduced in Georgia, Kentucky, and others that are very similar to taking these firearms. One of the things that Governor Northam has just said that was a possibility is that they would allow grandfathering of existing AR-15s, but you had to register them. But the head of the VCDL, which is vcld.org, the Virginia Citizens Defense League. This is no compromise because we're not going to tie the hands of our children and our grandchildren to own these firearms. It's not right for me just to have my AR-15, and yet the other people that don't necessarily have an AR-15 or AK-47 or whatever you want to fill in the blank. It's not right for them to not have the same rights that we do to defend life, liberty, and to defend their lives. Guys, the fact is that we do not live in a democracy. A democracy is mob rule. That's where the majority wins. Whatever the majority says, that's what we have to do. And the problem with majority, and it's what our founding fathers saw ahead of time, is that majorities can be swayed, they can be emotionally charged, they can actually look at smaller groups and they can use their numbers to impose their will. And so a constitutional republic is what the United States is, and that is rule of law. And again, government's job is to protect those rights. And it also protects minorities, whether it's racial, whether it's religion, whether it's just different groups, or whether it's gun owners, because like it or not, gun owners are the minority in the country. These laws should protect our rights, not take away our basic human rights. To be honest with you guys, it's absolutely immoral to take away any of the Bill of Rights, the rights that God gave us, because the government didn't give them to us, and they sure as heck aren't supposed to be able to take them away. Now, guys, what I'm really hoping will happen is that a lot of the moderate Democrats will see what's going on and not vote for these gun control bills, and that they will die in the Senate, they'll die in the House, even before they ever reach Governor Northam's desk. He will sign whatever hits his desk if it's gun control. And so hopefully this will be a sign to them that there are a lot of people out there that just aren't going along with it. But in the meantime, go to vcdl.org, and that's the Virginia Citizens Defense League. I highly recommend that you donate as support to their cause, which I have done. I gave a substantial amount myself, because not only do I want to protect the rights of Virginians, who are our fellow Americans, but also for other states that are going to surely follow in the same line if we don't do something. Michael Bloomberg has been pouring in tons of money, and these politicians are not voting with conscience, they're voting for the dollar. And we need to make sure that we let them know that we're not going to stand for it. Guys, you need to get active. And one of the big problems with Virginia is that they had a low voter turnout. From what I understand, and these numbers are not substantiated, but I heard that only a third of the voters came out to vote. Guys, we have got to stand firm. We have got to vote. We have got to get our voice out. And I think the VCLD is really doing that in Virginia. Make sure that you join your state gun rights organizations. I know here in South Carolina we have the Palmetto Rights Group, Gun Rights Group, and I'm a member of that. I donate money to it. And also national organizations that can also come in and help. Gun Owners of America, the sad thing is the NRA is right there in Fairfax, where it's the hotbed of a lot of this that's going on. But also the Second Amendment Foundation, which is another key element. They really take up a lot of court cases, and they win a lot of court cases when it comes to protecting our Second Amendment. And so even if Governor Northam and his cronies do pass gun legislation, hopefully by the time it gets into the courts, they'll just strike it down, because it's definitely unconstitutional. Guys, we have the right for self-defense. It's a basic human right, and we need to stand for that. What else is there if I can't stand and protect my kids, my wife, and myself from those who would do us harm? Whether it's foes, again, foreign or domestic. Guys, we went to the latest Star Wars movie last night, and there were a lot of things that were running through my mind while I was watching. The rebellion stand against the final order. One of the things that allowed the rebellion to exist was that they had firearms, that they had weapons to be able to defend themselves. And one of the things, though, that was mentioned is that the final order wants you to think that you're alone. But getting the word out lets you know that you're not alone. It's one of the greatest things about YouTube. We are reaching so many people to let them know that they're not alone. Virginia, you're not alone. Other states that are around, even those states that have those kind of restrictions, you're not alone. And we need to take this and we need to turn it around for freedom, for America, for our founding fathers, but mainly for our children and our grandchildren. America is the greatest last hope, and we need to make sure that we stand for our rights and protect the rights that God gave us. Be strong, be of good courage. God bless America. Long live the Republic.